The owl stares back at us with eyes too large, too knowing, as if it has seen something we haven't. Across history, that stare has meant many things: wisdom, warning, even death itself. Tonight, we're following the owl through time, across myths and across fears, to see how it went from divine companion of goddesses to omen of the grave. In ancient Greece, the owl was sacred to Athena, goddess of wisdom and war strategy. Coins stamped with her owl spread across the Mediterranean, each one a reminder that knowledge was power, and foresight won battles as surely as weapons did. The Greeks saw the owl's ability to see through the night as a mirror of Athena's clarity, vision beyond illusion, the insight to pierce darkness. Further east, in Egypt and Mesopotamia, owls had already attracted symbology and meaning. They guarded thresholds between worlds. Carved into tombs, painted on funerary walls, they watch over the dead. In Babylonian texts, the owl circles around Lilith, a shadowed feminine force tied to night, sexuality, and danger. For those cultures, the owl belonged to mystery itself and was the keeper of hidden power, a being to be revered and worshipped. Across Africa, Australia, and the Americas, owls carried layered meanings. For some tribes, they were protectors, spirit guides whispering warnings in dreams. For others, they were feared, believed to carry messages from the dead or to walk with shamans into other realms. The owl was a metaphorical bridge between living and dead, day and night, safety and fear. As centuries turned, so did the owl's image in Europe. Revered symbols became sinister ones, and the bird of wisdom became the bird of ill omen. They were seen as symbols for darkness, creatures of the night, aligned with witches and demons. Folklore spread the warning: hear an owl call near your home, and death follows soon after. They perched on gallows, on graveyards, on ruined churches, and their haunting cries worked their way into village superstition. Owls were even accused of being witches in disguise. Feathers and talons were burned at trials. Their once respected stare was recast as a glare of evil. And from those years of fear, stories grew darker still, tales where the owl was no longer just a symbol, but the witch herself. In a medieval village, the line between bird and witch blurred into one. By torchlight, they whispered that the woman in the next hut vanished at dusk and returned at dawn with straw tangled in her hair. They said she had flown through the night as an owl, her feathers damp with blood, her eyes still glowing from the hunt. When owls perched on rooftops, mothers dragged children inside, bolting the door as though the talons might scrape the lintel. Trials followed, feathers burned alongside kindling as proof of guilt. In one account, a villager swore he saw the owl burst from the accused woman's chest, flying into the rafters before the rope tightened. The church bells tolled, and the owl's cry echoed above the square. To the people watching, it was not a bird's voice at all, but the last scream of the witch they had condemned. From the gallows and the fire, the stories spread. In Ireland, the terror took a sharper edge. The owl's cry, raw and torn, was said to summon death itself. The barn owl's cry was never just a sound in the night. Unlike the soft hoot of other owls, this bird screamed, a torn, ragged voice that cut through stone walls and stilled hearth fires. Families froze when it passed overhead, convinced it was no bird at all, but the banshee in disguise, announcing that death would soon visit. Villagers swore that a white-winged shadow circling a roof was the same as a coffin placed inside it. Some said the owl's cry was so sharp it split the thread between life and breath, pulling souls from bodies before dawn. When the owl screamed above a home, candles were lit and prayers whispered, for no one doubted that before long the keening of the living would join the cry of the bird. Where Ireland heard the scream of death, the Norse looked higher. To them, the owl flew with warriors of the sky, a companion of Valkyries, marking which souls would fall. On storm-bright nights in the north, people said the sky shimmered with the armor of Valkyries, but not all the guides of the dead wore steel. Some whispered that owls flew ahead of them, silent outriders scouting the souls marked for battle. To hear an owl in the black hours was to feel the breath of fate on your shoulder. Perhaps the Valkyries had chosen, and your name was already written. Warriors claimed the bird's eyes burned with the glow of the aurora, reflecting the halls of Valhalla. Others said the owl carried a ledger invisible to mortals, each cry striking a name from the world of the living. It was never wise to follow its flight, for where it led, the earth would drink blood by morning. Beyond the storm-bright skies of the Norse, in the frozen Arctic night of Greenland and northern Canada, the owl's voice softened. Among Inuit families, its cry was not a terror of fate, but a signal that ancestors still walked near, unseen but never gone. In the endless Arctic night, when the sky was alive with shifting light, the call of an owl was comforting. Inuit families believed it was the sound of ancestors at play, their voices tumbling across the snow in feathered form. Elders told children to listen carefully, for the bird carried laughter from those who had gone before. Hunters swore that owls circled their camps as guardians, as a physical echo that the dead still walked near. At times, dreams that followed the owl's cry were treated as visits or messages carried on wings between this world and the next. Across the tundra, the fire cracked and whispered into the night. Hunters said the owl kept watch above their camps, circling in calm, steady arcs as the smoke rose. It moved with a kind of knowing, as if it recognized every soul gathered below. Some swore its voice carried through the snow like an old song, one meant to guide rather than warn. It was whispered that the owl flew with the ancestors, keeping the living company until dawn. Far from the frozen silence of the Arctic, in the warm dark of West Africa, the owl's voice carried yet another weight. Here it was not storm or kinship, but a messenger, flying between the living and the dead. In the thick velvet of West African nights, when the air itself seemed to hum, people said the owl's wings carried more than wind. They believed each beat of its flight was like parchment unfolding, inscribed with words no one else could write, messages from the ancestors, spoken across the boundary of death. If you heard the owl's call before you slept, you might wake with a dream not born of your own mind. Instead, it would be a vision placed there, delicate as smoke, left by those who had gone before you. Some families told of dreams that came as blessings. A farmer once swore he dreamed of rain falling on fields cracked with drought, and the next season brought floods that saved his crops. Women spoke of owls calling above their huts, and of dreaming children into being, tiny hands they had not yet held, names whispered before birth. These dreams were cherished, retold at dawn as gifts of fortune, proof that the dead were watching with love. But not every dream was a comfort. There were warnings too, carried on the same wings. People woke from the owl's cry to find their sleep filled with rivers running red, fields rotting in shadow, or hands clawing from darkness. Elders said these were not curses but cautions, glimpses of danger that could be avoided, if only the living had the courage to act. At sunrise, families gathered in the cool light to tell these dreams aloud. Around the fire, elders weighed their meanings, deciding which voices to follow, which paths to avoid. To them, the owl was never worshipped, never dismissed. It was a courier of the unseen, a witness in the night skies. And in its cry, sharp as flint and soft as dusk, they heard a truth few doubted. The world of the living and the dead was divided only by silence, and even silence could be broken. From the savannah to the sea, stories travel farther than wings ever could. As the owl's cry faded into the warm winds of Africa, another land waited beneath a different sky, older than memory, shaped by fire, rain, and song. Here, among red earth and stars that pulse like embers, the owl's voice became part of the dreaming, woven into the stories that tell how the land is living and breathing. In the quiet hours after sunset, when the cicadas had given way to the frogs and the air still held the warmth of day, people gathered near the old fire trees. These trees burned from within, their hearts rich with resin. The elders told of a woman who walked from camp to camp at night, tending the embers that fed each family's hearth. She moved with patience, carrying a bowl carved from wood, and in it she kept a small flame alive. Wherever she travelled, the light followed. Her steps made no sound on the earth. The land knew her. Every blade of grass leaned toward her passing. Every insect held its breath until her shadow slipped by. She gathered warmth the way others gather water, for the keeping of life and the comfort of sleep. She visited those whose fires had gone low, sharing the coals from her own. No one saw her face clearly, though her presence carried the calm of someone who had lived many seasons and remembered each one. One evening she wandered toward a river lined with paper barks. The air shimmered with mist and the sweet scent of sap. Fireflies drifted between the branches, their glow dancing like tiny spirits. The woman rested beneath a great gum whose roots held the memory of water. As she leaned against its trunk, the coals in her bowl flared brighter, and a wind stirred through the canopy. The light caught in her hair, spilling through the smoke until it seemed she was made of flame and wind together. The ancestors saw her tending the fires of the living and chose to give her a gift. They sent a song that moved through the trees, a low, steady call that echoed between branches and stars. Her body lifted into the air as feathers shaped themselves from ash and ember. The bowl of coals became her eyes, glowing gold beneath the moon. She rose above the river, wings wide, carrying the warmth of every fire she had ever tended. That night, the first owl entered the world. It flew from camp to camp, following the rhythm of sleeping hearts. When it called, its voice trembled like a held breath, deep and unbroken. People looked up from their blankets and felt peace settle over them, certain that their fires would greet the morning. The elders say the owl keeps the night alive. It carries the memory of flame through the hours when the world grows still, reminding the land that light continues, even when no one is awake to see it. When the wind turns gentle and the gums whisper to each other, that is the owl's doing. The woman's spirit passing through the branches, tending the glow of life she once carried in her hands. As the southern stars faded and dawn crept across the sea, the owl's song rose again, softer now, carried on salt air and mist. Beyond the horizon lay another island realm, where mountains met the ocean and the forests whispered with rain. In Japan, the owl watched from temple eaves and moonlit cedars, a silent guardian of thought and fortune. Its call no longer spoke of fire or ancestors, but of patience, wisdom, and the unseen threads that guide a life. In the cedar forests of Akasaka, mist often gathered before dawn, silvering the ground and softening every sound. Travelers said the air there seemed alive, holding breath between night and morning. The path through the woods wound beside an old shrine, its roof heavy with moss, its lanterns long unlit. Locals rarely passed that way after dusk. The forest had a quiet that felt older than time, as if it remembered footsteps long vanished. Centuries ago, when the shrine still burned with prayer light, a boy tended its lamps. He was small and careful, sweeping fallen needles from the steps, polishing the bronze bells, lighting wicks one by one. Every morning, before the sun reached the ridge, he climbed the hill to relight the final lantern, the one that faced the valley. It was said that the gods could see that flame from beyond the mountains, and as long as it burned, the village below would know peace. One winter morning, heavy snow began to fall. The boy never returned from his climb. The villagers searched the slopes until the wind turned fierce and the forest swallowed all trace of him. In time, his name became part of the shrine's prayers. The lanterns remained cold for many seasons. Then, one night, a soft light appeared among the trees. At first it seemed like moonlight caught in fog, but it pulsed gently, flickering from branch to branch. The villagers who dared to look closer saw an owl perched above the old shrine. Its breast shone like fire through rice paper, its eyes bright as twin coals. The light drifted through the cedars, touching every unlit lantern until each glowed again. From that night on, the forest never lost its hush, but it no longer felt empty. The owl returned whenever snow fell, its glow moving along the path the boy once walked. People began leaving offerings of polished stones and pine sprigs at the shrine steps. They said the owl's light carried warmth into winter and guided lost travelers home. Now, in the small hours before dawn, when the mists lift and a faint gold flicker moves between the trees, those who see it pause and bow their heads. The flame still burns, and the forest remembers. Leaving Japan for the old cities of Europe, where marble remembers every echo, the owl's call threaded through arches and courtyards. Here, they believed that the owl ceased to watch over people and turned to observe time itself. In the spring of 1520, the city of Urbino lay folded in mist, its tiled roofs damp with rain. The bells had not yet rung for dawn when the palace watchman heard a cry from the loggia above the courtyard. He climbed the marble steps and found a small owl perched on the cornice, feathers slick and grey, eyes burning like oil lamps in the dark. That same night, the painter Raphael lay fevered in his chamber, brush still wet beside the unfinished figure of the Madonna. Servants said he had worked without rest, painting through the Holy Week storms, his hands shaking as he mixed vermilion with white. When the cry came again, echoing through the courtyard arches, the candle light in his room flickered and went still. By morning the owl was gone, but word spread through the city before the sun broke the mist. The guards said no bird had entered or left the palace gates. The painter's apprentices whispered that it had flown through the walls themselves. Days later, as the bells tolled for Raphael's funeral, a child carrying daisies stopped on the cathedral steps. She pointed upward. On the carved stone lintel above the great doors sat a single owl, motionless, its feathers ruffling in the wind. The monks tried to shoo it, but it held its ground until the last hymn ended, then rose silently and vanished over the rooftops. After that, the Owl of Urbino became a quiet legend. For generations, whenever a painter or scholar fell ill, people looked to the towers at dusk. A shadow might move along the parapet, or a cry might break the evening calm, and every brush, every quill would pause mid-stroke. Even now, in the palazzo where Raphael once worked, the guides say that during spring storms, the wind still carries that cry through the arches. It isn't heard by everyone, only those who linger too long before a canvas, staring into faces that never quite stop looking back. Some say the owl never left Urbino. It has seen the colours fade, the plaster crack, the centuries tilt and settle into dust. Still, it watches from stone ledges and painted ceilings, patient as time itself. The breath of the artist, the silence of the marble, the echo of prayers in the stairwells, all live inside the gaze. Seeing the owl now is said to be a glimpse of eternity. The story turns now to the vast interior of North America, to lands of wind and open sky, where the grass moves like water and the stars burn close to the earth. Here, among the people who have lived with the rhythm of the plains for countless generations, stories rise from the breath of the land itself. In this place, the wolf runs, the owl watches, and their voices shape the silence of the night. Let's tell of a night before winter fully claimed the plains, when the moon hung low and frost silvered every blade of grass. From the ridge above the river came an owl's call, deep, round, steady. The wolf lifted his head and listened. For many seasons he had run with his kin, their paws drumming the earth in rhythm with the wind. The valley was his heartbeat, the snow his memory. That night, the owl's voice drew him upward. He climbed the ridge through whispering grass until he reached the cottonwood that faced the stars. There, the owl waited, feathers pale as breath, eyes reflecting the river's frozen gleam. The wolf spoke tersely. "You who see through darkness, why do you call to me?" The owl answered calmly and with lilting reason. "It is because you move through the world with strength, yet strength alone cannot guide the path. Vision must walk beside it." The wolf stood in stillness, the frost whispering under his paws. He felt the pulse of his pack sleeping in the valley below, their dreams carried on the wind. "I know the trail," he said. "It leads to food, to family, to safety. What more must I see?" The owl's feathers shifted in the light. "You see the ground before you, but not the pattern beneath it. Every path leaves an echo. Every hunt shapes the grass. The land remembers how you move, as it remembers how I watch." The wolf lowered his gaze to the frozen river glinting far below. "And what do you watch for?" "For balance," said the owl. "The night teaches patience, as the day teaches pursuit. Together they hold the world upright. Without stillness, strength burns itself away. Without strength, stillness forgets its purpose." The wolf listened. In the owl's voice, he heard more than words, the rhythm of snow falling, of wind through hollow trees. He felt the long line of ancestors in his blood and the weight of the sky pressing close to the earth. "Then I will remember," he said. "When I run, I will carry your silence. When I rest, I will guard your sight." The owl inclined its head. "And I will keep watch when the pack sleeps. My wings will measure the hours that hold you safe as dawn broke. Light spread over the plains in slow ribbons of gold." The wolf turned toward his kin, each breath a cloud of warmth in the morning air. The owl lifted into the pale sky, circling once before melting into the horizon. To the people of the plains, this meeting lived on. The wolf came to stand for the bond between all who share breath, the teacher of loyalty, instinct, and endurance. The owl became the keeper of vision, the one who sees beyond sight, who guards the unseen threads that hold the world together. When their voices rise together, a call from the earth and an answer from the air, the land is said to remember its own balance. And in the quiet that follows, when the wind softens and the stars fade, the world breathes again, whole, awake, and listening. Night has always belonged to the owl. Long before classrooms and ink, its gaze became a metaphor for insight, the ability to see when others cannot. Ancient scholars watched it hunt in silence and saw themselves in that focus, that patience, that precision. From temple carvings to library seals, the owl became the emblem of learning. Before dawn, the Library of Alexandria breathed like a living mind. Marble floors glowed with lantern light, and the scent of salt and ink filled the corridors. Scrolls rested in their alcoves like sleeping voices, the whispers of every age contained in papyrus and wax. A young scribe named Callimachus moved through the quiet, his sandals soft on stone, the sea murmuring beyond the walls. Somewhere in the endless aisles, he sensed he was being watched. Above the geometry shelves, an owl sat upon a column, feathers tinted gold by the flame. Its eyes shone amber, steady, intelligent, almost human. Callimachus froze, the lantern trembling in his hand. The owl tilted its head, regarding him as if testing the weight of his thoughts. He felt the air change. The silence thickened until it pulsed with meaning. The owl seemed to gaze not at him, but through him, into the restless machinery of his mind. When it blinked, he saw patterns in the darkness, circles within circles, ratios folding into symmetry. He hurried to his desk, ink trembling at the tip of his stylus. The owl stayed until the first rays of dawn touched the windows, then lifted into the arches and was gone, leaving the faint stir of wings among the scrolls. At sunrise, Callimachus's mentor found him surrounded by diagrams and proofs, eyes alight with revelation. The boy spoke of the owl, voice quiet but sure. The elder nodded, saying only that wisdom visits in many forms, and those who listen will always learn. From that morning onward, the scribe worked with new precision, as though each line he drew carried the echo of wings. In time, others heard his story. Some came to see the place for themselves, the alcove where ideas took flight. The owl was never seen again, but scholars began to leave small tokens on the column's base, a feather, a coin, a strip of papyrus inscribed with a single line of thought worth keeping. And so, the owl became the unseen emblem of study itself, vision within thoughts, understanding above knowledge. Years later, when Callimachus grew old, he taught the apprentices who came after him to write by lamplight, to listen for what knowledge wished to reveal. He told them that true learning begins in stillness, that wisdom is stored in scrolls and awakened in the mind that seeks. He would pause then, eyes lifting to the shadows of the rafters, and smile. An owl once watched over this place, he would say, and in its gaze I saw what all teachers wish for, wonderful thoughts that can fly into the future. From the marble halls of Greece, the light of reason travelled east, carried in scrolls, languages, and starlight. In the centuries that followed, new minds studied the same heavens through different eyes. Where Greece sought logic, China sought harmony and its balance within the natural order. And there, under a sky brushed with ink and moonlight, another kind of scholar looked upward. In the mountains above Luoyang, where night falls like ink across the pines, the astronomer Wei Han kept a quiet observatory of bamboo and stone. His days were spent charting the courses of stars, his nights listening to the hum of the earth between their movements. One evening, as a storm drifted east, he saw an owl perched upon the bronze edge of his armillary sphere. Its feathers shimmered with a strange pallor, neither gold nor silver, but something between, the colour of a thought just forming. It did not startle at thunder, it only watched. For nights afterward, the owl returned. When clouds swallowed the moon, its eyes still gleamed, reflecting patterns Wei Han could not yet name. He began to notice the constellations shifting in rhythm with its visits, not in the sky, but in his perception of it. The stars seemed to align toward meaning rather than motion. Wei Han wrote in his ledger, "The owl sees through illusion. It follows the structure of light itself." Through that thought came understanding. The wisdom he had pursued through observation revealed itself within awareness, the recognition that seeing begins the moment the mind becomes still enough to truly perceive. The villagers later said the owl was celestial, a messenger between realms, born of the stars he studied. Some called it a harbinger of insight, others a spirit of reckoning. Wei Han never claimed either. He only said that the bird taught him the discipline of silence, that wisdom begins when one stops naming what cannot yet be understood. Before dawn one morning, he found the owl's feather resting on his notes. It caught the lantern's light and shimmered faintly like a fragment of sky. He placed it between the pages and wrote his final line: "To know is to see with the mind awake." Leaving the ancient structures and stories of China, we move to the rich and colourful tales of India. The owl's symbology has roots in mysticism within many cultures. For example, in the desert hills of Rajasthan, where sand drifts like golden breath and the wind hums through temple ruins, a girl named Annika was born with eyes that seemed to drink light. Her father carved idols for the shrines of Lakshmi, and each night he placed a small clay lamp before the goddess's owl, the bringer of vision and fortune. Annika grew among those lamps. She learned the scent of oil and smoke, the way flame bends when someone enters the room. Sometimes she felt another awareness moving with her, quiet, alert, as if a presence was watching through the shimmer. One night, during the festival of Diwali, when the air swelled with music and firecrackers, she slipped away from the noise and followed a trail of lamps leading toward the dunes. Beyond the last flame, beneath a moon pale as milk, an owl waited upon a sandstone arch. Its feathers gleamed silver, its eyes burned with golden calm. Annika stood still. The world slowed, her breath matching the rhythm of the lamps behind her. The owl's gaze settled between her brows, and warmth unfolded across her forehead, light blooming inward, steady and whole. A current of brilliance spiraled through her being, revealing shapes she had never known, yet somehow remembered. Her heartbeat moved like mantra. When dawn came, she found she could see patterns behind the surface of things, ripples in the air around people, colours that rose and faded with their moods. Villagers sought her counsel, saying her eyes held the stillness of deep water. She spoke little, yet her silence seemed to answer what words could not. Years passed, and Annika became the lamp keeper of the temple. She no longer searched for the owl, for its vision lived within her, the flame between the eyes that sees through illusion. Each evening she lit the first lamp and whispered, "For the sight that never sleeps." And sometimes, when the desert wind carried the scent of jasmine and dust, wings would cross the moon above her roof, circling once before vanishing into the stars, as if the night itself still remembered the moment a human being truly saw. In the heart of Anatolia, during the 10th century, the valleys of Cappadocia glowed like rose-coloured embers beneath the setting sun. The wind shaped the earth into spires and chambers, and the people carved their faith into the stone, prayers painted in pigment and smoke. Among them lived Layla, a scribe who worked beside the monks of Göreme. Each day she copied their sacred texts within a hollowed chamber, her quill whispering across parchment while the scent of dust and oil filled the air. When her work was complete, she lingered in the quiet and traced the fossils that slept within the stone walls. Shells, roots, and ancient forms appeared in the rock like the echoes of forgotten thought. To Layla, these impressions spoke of wisdom older than language, messages written by the earth itself for those willing to see. One night, while she wrote by the light of an olive oil lamp, the flame wavered and drew her gaze upward. At the edge of the cave window rested an owl. Its feathers carried the same hue as the cliffs. Its eyes glimmered with a calm light that seemed both near and endless. She met its gaze and felt her mind grow still. The words before her softened into shapes of gold, and understanding rose quietly through her being. The scripture she had copied for years opened from within, revealing its meaning through experience rather than study. The sacred existed within awareness, vivid and whole. In that stillness, Layla saw that the world she sought to understand had always lived inside her. When dawn touched the valley, Layla stepped outside into a landscape washed in rose and gold. Each ridge of stone shimmered with light, each hollow breathed with memory. She no longer searched for truth, she moved within it. Above her, the owl lifted into the wind and circled once before merging with the colour of the cliffs. In that merging of wing and earth, Layla recognized what she had always sought: sight as communion, knowledge as belonging. And so the story of the owl turned inward once more. From temple to desert, from scholar's ink to scribe's stone, its gaze followed every question we have ever asked about the nature of seeing. For each generation, the owl has taught the same quiet truth: that illumination does not descend from the sky, it rises from within the human mind. In the high valleys of the Andes, where wind moves like song through the stone terraces, people once spoke of Huitaca, the radiant goddess of the moon. She taught the gifts of music, laughter, and pleasure, believing joy itself to be a form of wisdom. But joy unsettled the keepers of order, and the priest Bochica, guardian of law and restraint, cursed her for leading mortals toward freedom of spirit. The night she fell from grace, Huitaca did not weep. She rose into the sky and spread new wings, her body becoming light and feather, a white owl gliding through mountain mist. Her eyes held the glow of the moon she once ruled, and her call trembled through the canyons like the echo of an idea too dangerous to silence. From that night onward, shepherds said the owl carried the pulse of Huitaca's defiance, wisdom that refused to bow to fear. Women sang her songs when they ground maize at dawn, and travelers left offerings of silver thread so her light would guide them home. She did not return to her temple, yet her lessons endured. The people came to believe that laughter and intuition were equal to discipline and prayer, and that seeing the world fully required both reverence and delight. When the moon lifted over the Andes, its pale fire often curved into the shape of her wings. Those who understood her story said that she still flew there as owl goddess, representing spiritual awareness and divine joy. The elders taught with reverence when retelling her story that wisdom is freedom held in balance with truth. And so the owl of Huitaca remains, white against the night, carrying the shimmer of joy that no curse could ever extinguish. Throughout history, owls have captured our attention and flown their way into our myths, legends, stories, beliefs, and spirituality. Before finishing our journey tonight, let's examine the science behind owls to understand their unique qualities and perhaps explain our fascination with them. Owls belong to an ancient order of birds known as strigiforms, a lineage that has flown through the night for more than 60 million years. More than 240 species exist across two families, the Strigidae, or typical owls, and the Titonidae, the barn owls. They live on every continent except Antarctica, occupying tundra, rainforest, desert, and city alike. The owl's anatomy is an instrument of precision. Its eyes, vast in proportion to the skull, are not spheres, but elongated tubes that draw in and magnify light. Inside them, dense fields of rod cells capture the faintest tremor of movement in darkness. Because the eyes remain fixed, The neck becomes the gyroscope, able to turn through 270 degrees. Special blood vessels keep the brain fed as the head completes that full, unbroken arc. Its hearing forms a second kind of vision. The ear openings sit at uneven heights, allowing the owl to measure distance and direction through minute differences in sound. Some species can sense the flutter of a mouse's heartbeat beneath snow. The barn owl, pale, heart-faced, and ghost-like, can hunt in absolute darkness, guided only by sound. Its world is everywhere: barns, cliffs, temples, towers, grasslands, and coasts. Wherever life gathers, it adapts. Every feather of the owl serves silence. The front edge of each wing is serrated like a comb, slicing air before it can stir. The rest of the plumage is soft and velvet fine, swallowing noise. Its flight passes without sound. Even the prey beneath it cannot hear the moment of approach. Evolution shaped a body that moves through air like a thought. Rain changes the rhythm of their world. The feathers that shape such perfect silence are finely textured, built to catch air rather than shed water. In heavy weather, they gather moisture until flight becomes slow and deliberate, the soundless hunter turning watcher once more. Most owls choose shelter, resting beneath eaves, cliffs, or the deep canopy until the storm passes. When the clouds break and the night clears, they shake droplets into mist and rise again, wings cutting through the damp air with restored precision. The feet form a perfect cross, 2 talons forward, 2 behind. Each strike lands with unerring precision. Inside the skull, the brain is built for fusion. The optic tectum, the meeting ground of sight and sound, dominates its structure. Vision and hearing merge into one sense of space, allowing an owl to map the world with total accuracy. Its intelligence lives in perception itself, with attention honed to instinct, and there is then accuracy without any hesitation. Fossils tell how long this design has endured. Owls appeared soon after the age of dinosaurs and have changed little since, a form already near perfection. They survived ice ages and extinctions, following prey across shifting climates. Some live alone on desert cliffs, others nest in city towers and hunt under neon light. In so many places, an owl waits, silent, patient, utterly aware. With this amazing anatomical design, is it any wonder that people have remained fascinated by them through the ages? Across centuries and civilizations, the owl has remained the watcher in the dark, a presence between silence and revelation. From the marble libraries of Athens to the wind-carved caves of Cappadocia, its gaze has followed the human search for understanding. Each culture saw in it what their time required: wisdom, warning, insight, or passage. Through every story, a strong current endures, the knowing that true sight awakens from the world within. The owl's eyes mirror the evolution of our own perception. They reveal how knowledge changes form as it travels through the ages, from logic to faith, from reason to intuition, from thought to vision. In that reflection, we glimpse the unfolding of awareness itself. For the scholar, the owl embodies intellect; for the seeker, intuition; for the mystic, comprehension without boundary. The bird never speaks, yet it teaches unceasingly. Illumination is the act of seeing clearly, a recognition born in the mind that observes without fear. Through time and memory, the owl endures, silent companion, mirror of thought, symbol of the consciousness that continues to awaken. And when its wings cross the night, a truth stirs in the heart of every listener. In shadow and starlight, the owl endures as the emblem of consciousness, awareness refined into insight, knowledge shaped into understanding, and wisdom carried as light between worlds. It is spirit in motion, a quiet presence that guides through intuition, protecting what is unseen yet deeply known. To see as the owl sees is to awaken fully within both worlds, the visible and the unseen. In its gaze, the world awakens, and through that vision, we remember our own. In the landscape of sleep, the owl moves as the mind's own messenger. It drifts through the subconscious like a living symbol, carrying meaning on silent wings. Every encounter carries intent, a precise shape chosen by the deeper self to speak through image instead of words. A white owl crossing the dream sky signals illumination. It appears in moments when truth is ripening, when understanding begins to take form. The air around it feels still, clear, charged with knowing. Those who see it often wake with clarity that lingers, as if a secret has been quietly confirmed. A brown owl belongs to the dream of grounding. It lands softly, often near the earth or forest floor. Its presence brings calm steadiness, guiding the dreamer back to natural rhythm. It suggests a return to trust in daily instinct, the kind of wisdom that doesn't need to be sought because it's already woven into living. A black or shadowed owl arrives during deep change. Its eyes glint from darkness, inviting the dreamer to acknowledge what lies beneath appearances. It is a keeper of thresholds, holding the quiet power that comes with self-honesty. The message is meant to be felt physically, a shift in the chest, and a deep realization that the next version of self is already forming. Dreams of owl flight can be interpreted as your movement through unseen spaces or new territory. The dreamer senses air rushing, feathers brushing through twilight, the thrill of being airborne that is so otherworldly. This dream flight carries inspiration, ideas rising, spirit expanding, and boundaries dissolving. It marks readiness, almost as if the soul is stretching toward its next horizon. Dreaming of becoming an owl takes the meaning further. To feel wings unfold, to see from above, is to merge with perception itself. These dreams are rare and profound, often following periods of awakening or creative growth. They speak of uniting instinct and insight, of learning to move through darkness with confidence instead of fear. At times, only the eyes of an owl appear, vast, golden, and still. They hover in the dark like mirrors that see both directions at once. This vision reflects the awakening of inner sight, the part of awareness that notices what thought cannot grasp. The eyes reveal a whole universe to be discovered. Meeting their gaze in a dream is said to increase your own capacity for seeing clearly and with vision. A dream that turns nightmarish with an owl's presence carries power of a different kind. The sensation is often intense, feathers rushing, eyes glaring, the air vibrating with energy. Such dreams arise when suppressed truth pushes to the surface. The owl is demanding recognition. It appears as fear only because the message is large and unavoidable. Facing it dissolves the tension, leaving insight in its place. Some dreamers hear the call of the owl echoing through distance, a haunting note that lingers even after waking. This sound marks communication between the conscious and the unconscious mind. This means listen closer. The tone of that call shapes its message. Deep and slow brings reassurance. Sharp and brief carries urgency. Others dream of a still owl watching from above or behind. It is still and it studies. The dream unfolds around its gaze, as if the owl holds the narrative steady. These are dreams of observation, the psyche asking for truth before action. It is about patience in perception and the lesson in waiting for the full picture before choosing direction. Finally, a dream of two owls together, either sitting or moving in rhythm, together in unity. Their pairing symbolizes harmony between your inner voices, logic and intuition, instinct and reflection. In such dreams, it's about communication deepening, relationships aligning, and energy balancing. The atmosphere feels peaceful, as if the dream itself has exhaled. What a delight! If an owl has ever entered your dream, or you've seen its eyes watching from the dark, recall the feeling that came with it. Each detail holds its own intelligence. Each image is an offering from the deeper mind, guiding awareness toward balance and truth. The owl is visiting to show you that the dreamer and the watcher are one, and something can be gleaned from the dream encounter. The owl moves quietly through human life, softly on the edges of our nights. Its presence steadies the air and draws the mind inward. Those who are attuned to it often sense direction without explanation, simply knowing when something aligns. They become aware of shifts before they happen, guided by timing that feels intuitive. The owl reflects that same state of being, awake, measured, and deliberate. Carrying an owl charm brings a sense of protection, a calm awareness that listens beneath the surface of things. It keeps thought clear and instinct sharp, helping the two move together instead of apart. People drawn to the owl charm are often intuitive by nature, steady observers who can feel energy shift before words catch up. They move through the world with quiet focus, guided by both reason and sensing. Sometimes an owl tattoo, pendant, or piece of art doesn't start as a statement at all. People are drawn to owls for their shape, their gaze, or the quiet power they seem to hold. The attraction itself says something. Choosing the owl, even without thinking about its symbolism, still brings its qualities into view: the steadiness, the curiosity, the intelligence that watches rather than rushes. Over time, those traits tend to settle into the person who keeps it close, shaping how they move through the world, attentive, thoughtful, and calmly aware. For some, the owl becomes a familiar presence. It appears at turning points, seen on signs, crossing roads at dusk, or calling from nearby trees before life rearranges itself. These moments are seldom random. The timing feels exact, as if awareness has stepped into frame. The owl arrives to hold space until the meaning is clear. Finding an owl feather can stop a person mid-step. There's a pause, a small stillness that feels intentional. Feathers carry evidence of connection, matter shaped by flight, a trace of insight left behind. Many keep them as reminders of protection and awareness moving together. They tend to appear when choices are forming, when thought needs grounding before it becomes action. Many believe that feathers are messages from loved ones who have passed away. Owl art, painted, carved, or even sculptured in clay, reflects that same kind of attention. People are drawn to it for many reasons. Perhaps they are seeking clarity or renewal of inner sight. Creating it by hand channels focus. Keeping it nearby invites reflection. The image holds interpretation, waiting for the mind to settle enough to see. Those who feel a strong link to the owl usually carry a composed energy. They pick up shifts in emotion, sense what's unspoken, and rely on quiet certainty rather than impulse. Their presence feels steady because it's rooted in awareness. They read the room without trying. They act only when timing clicks into place. In spirit, the owl represents mastery of perception. It teaches that understanding grows through patience, through the willingness to let truth show itself in time. People who keep its symbol often feel drawn to in-between moments: twilight, early dawn, thresholds of change. They're comfortable in those spaces because they understand that transition is where awareness grows. If the owl has chosen you, through sign or symbol or timing too perfect to ignore, take it as confirmation. It speaks of trust in your own discernment and in the invisible rhythm that shapes your days. The owl walks beside those who see without rushing to explain. For those who listen beyond sound and who understand that wisdom is what happens when experience, reflection, and timing start working together instead of against each other. In the bushland of southeast Queensland in 2025, the nights carried a calm rhythm, a soft call rising through the trees beyond my window. A small Boobook owl, Australia's tiniest watcher of the dark, had chosen that branch as its stage. While I wrote these stories of ancient wisdom and quiet knowing, its voice moved through the eucalyptus and ironbark, steady and sure, 2 notes repeated like a heartbeat in the dark. Here, under warm skies and shifting leaves, the owl revealed the art of awareness. The Boobook listens with perfect stillness. It becomes part of the forest, sensing each change in wind and light. Its way is observation in motion, life attuned to its surroundings, calm and alert. As the nights unfolded, I came to know the owl as a companion of thought. Its song shaped the rhythm of my work, guiding each line with an understanding that grows from attention itself. It reminded me that insight often lives close at hand, within the breath of the living world. The Boobook teaches that wisdom unfolds through harmony, sound, air, and intention moving as one. So this story concludes beneath the same moon that carried its call. The owl waits among the trees, steady and clear in its knowing, a teacher of quiet perception. Awareness moves through all things, and those who listen are already part of it. The Boobook still calls through the night, voice steady as the stars. Its song belongs to the land, but it also belongs to anyone who listens. If an owl has ever crossed your path or called outside your window, share what it meant to you in comments. I read them all. Every encounter with an owl carries its own kind of wisdom. Each call is an invitation to remember the unseen threads that guide awareness, the quiet conversation between earth and spirit. The owl shows us that insight is close, and it waits quietly in the spaces when we take time to see and hear.